The presenting sponsor for On Education is Schoology. Schoology is not only the best learning management system, it's also a community of lifelong learners. Join On Education at the Schoology NEXT conference July 16th through 18th in San Diego, California. This is a chance to immerse yourself in hands-on workshops, advanced product training sessions, and best practice presentations. If you want to learn more about Schoology and how they can help you advance what's possible, visit Schoology.com.
Google, calm down, okay? Just cool it, guys. Welcome to On Education. I'm Mike Washburn.
And I'm Glen Irvin. Friends, we have an awesome pod for you today. We're going to give you a preview of the Schoology NEXT conference, talk about the problems with ISTE, discuss the death of EdTech, and we will talk with the CEO of Tynker about his amazing company.
But first, let's talk about the World Cup first.
Oh my God.
Mexico's out.
Yes, that was a devastating day. It was a sad day.
When was that? Sorry, I missed the game.
I want to say it was on Monday. So this past Monday, yep, it was Monday morning, and all the hopes and prospects were on that game, and there was nothing really.
Play?
They played Brazil. Remember, I had told you in a previous episode. I said, as long as we don't have to play Brazil in the first round.
As long as you don't have to play Brazil. So that didn't work out so well for you.
That didn't work out well. We lost 2-0. The most significant part of the game was there's this really famous player for Brazil. His name is Neymar. I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
Yes, I've been seeing a lot about Neymar. Yeah,
so that was the only significant part, was him writhing on the ground, pretending that someone had...
Like he's dying.
Yes, it's hurt him so badly. Yes, exactly. So that was the only remembering of the game. They were better than us. But the good part was that they lost to Belgium already.
They did.
And so they're out. So they're not in the top 4 teams.
So England is moving on.
Yes.
So my motherland is on to the semifinals. I think.
They're in the top 4 now. Exactly.
And they're going against not Belgium. It's France, right? They're going against France.
They're going against France, and France is a tough team too. So that's a really good matchup.
Awesome. And then happy that Russia is out, I guess.
Yes, Russia's out. Croatia is in the top 4, which is amazing. And that was actually a really amazing game. It was 2-2 tied. They had to go into penalty shots at the end of the game, and Croatia was the victor, so they move on.
Wow.
Yes, and then so it's Croatia and Belgium. So,
well, there you go.
Yeah,
there's your on your education podcast. There's your World Cup update.
And Mexico's out.
This is the type of service that we provide at On Education. If Sports Center needs some people, I think we're available, at least for another couple weeks. So we're going to talk about a couple other cool blog posts, but tons of post-ISTE writing.
A lot
that
of
was
ISTE-related.
super interesting. And a friend of the pod, Noah Geisel, wrote a pretty awesome blog post about a panel at ISTE called Epic Failures. How has an epic failure turned into a growth mindset? Super cool panel with another friend of the pod, Sarah Thomas, was on it. And I love any conversations about failure. I love talking about, because of 2 things. First off, my entire teaching career has been centered around making mistakes and then fixing them, or reiterating on them. When you teach programming and game design and computer science, you're basically, your whole experience is centered around failure in some way, shape, or form.
Yes.
And being, doing technology integration, it's a lot of that too. It's a lot about figuring out what went wrong and fixing it. And I'm sure you have almost the same experience. I mean, you basically built a Minecraft Spanish program, which is friggin' unbelievable.
Yeah,
from nothing, right?
Yeah, I would say that and what I think is the biggest thing about teachers being okay with failure, like trying things out, like we've talked about in past shows, and then having it not go exactly as you wanted, but then being okay with that, and then being able to revamp that, and then try it out, a better version of that thing, is that your kids also know that you're not perfect. And that's a great thing to do right from the beginning, because if you've ever had those teachers or professors that pretend that they are always right, those are usually people you don't really make a good connection with, because they seem like not human, and so it's good to be able to talk and say, hey, things sometimes don't go right, whether it be like you just said about tech, or it be something in a lesson, it just doesn't work. But just that whole concept of being okay with that, and being able to learn, and then being able to go ahead and, like you just said, get a new way of being able to introduce it the next time or the next day, whatever you're working on. And this panel sounds like it was amazing as far as how the best part I thought was, if you read this article by Noah, is they turned it around to the audience and let them actually go ahead and share with each other, all of their things, the things that they have experienced as far as with failure, and how it ended up being, in the end, a big success.
One of the things that I thought was super interesting with this was that it was an all-women panel as well.
Yes.
There are different obviously, there are different experiences, especially, I think, surrounded around failure. And being a woman, not being a woman myself, I have a hard time, I can't relate, but I want to try to understand that more, for sure.
Yes.
And the idea that maybe failure is less accepted by women in EdTech than it is by men. The idea that men can be perceived as adventurous and risk-taking, and women are perceived as incompetent or prone to mistakes, and obviously that's ridiculous. I mean, you look at some of the amazing women we've spoken to even on this podcast, and these are giants of women, and just completely incredibly special people, and I love the idea of continuing to break down some of those stereotypes as well.
Big time. Totally agree with you.
It was very, very, very cool. So I'm going to bring the Twitter update this week.
This week on Twitter.
I got into a fight. Well, sorry. So I raised hell on the last day of ISTE. And you know how I know I raised hell is because people are I'm literally still getting
replies.
Not only retweets, but comments on it. And it's been a week and a half?
Been a week and a half.
Since it's been over.
Mm-hmm.
But I was quoted by our friend Alice Keeler as, we were sitting around, we were just hanging out, and I started to go on a rant about smartboards because as Glenn, you said, I'm not known to go on rants at all, ever. So, and I mean, I'm not a fan of smartboards. Yeah. It is what it is. I think that they're misused and certainly were a giant waste of money. Now, that being said, I think as in almost all, rant-filled quotes and debates, and including even, I guess, when we started talking about you and Teachers Pay Teachers and all that stuff, there's more nuance to it than the actual, giant hot take quote that I said. It's
always and of course I do the exact same thing. We think it's a black and white argument, but there's so much. There's always gray. There's so much gray. It's so much different circumstances that different people are experiencing in their current environments. Especially, we talk all the time about funding in the United States, as far as how vastly different it is, not only from state to state, which is significant, but even just school to school district, depending upon where you live, the way that teachers are paid and the way that funding takes place for this example, as far as EdTech type of things, purchases,
Right.
is so greatly different, from district to district. So their experiences are different. So then this, an item like a smartboard can be, a really hot button issue, I would say.
Yeah, so I mean, I have a couple concessions, and I guess the first thing I would say is that smartboard, the boom of smartboards happened in an era, in a time when there was no iPads.
Yeah.
There was
well, I mean, I think there was
Chromebooks.
iPads. I think there was iPads. Actually, I think some people had laptops. So there was a 1-to-1 in very few schools, though. You know what I mean?
And in some of these cases, smartboards were the only thing boards were approving. Like,
Yes.
like literally, it was here. You can have this, but this and this is what we're doing. So
yeah, totally.
take it or leave it, I guess. But in some cases, you weren't given a choice. I can tell you that in a lot of cases, teachers wouldn't have been given a choice in any board that I know of in Ontario. If you were installing a smart board, if the school decided, or if the principal decided in some cases,
Yeah.
but in most cases, if the Board of Education decided, then that's what's happening. You're getting
yeah,
a smart
totally.
board.
Yes, exactly. You were going to get trained on it, and that was the
Sort of.
Yeah, well, it just depended on what exactly what you're talking about. And this was
Right.
for us. It was it was early 2000s when this happened, and my point was basically that the previous thing to smartboards for us was an overhead projector.
Yes.
So, that was really, if you think about how different those two tools are, it just blows you away. And the smartboard had this ability that we didn't have as far as in the past, which was, it was kind of like it reminded me of the teacher storage part of an LMS. So in other words, it could keep your lessons, and you'd have a way to be able to go in to kind of track your different lessons that you did throughout the year in a digital format for the first time. Unless you typed up everything on Microsoft Word, and it had an actual projector, which we didn't. We didn't have any, video projecting devices. So,
Right.
so when we purchased the smartboard, a projector came with it. So that back then
Yeah.
in the early 2000s, that was about $1,000.
Two for the price of one.
Yeah. So if you had about $1,000 device thing there. How many iPads could you have got out of that back in the early 2000s? Maybe 2. So it wasn't like it was either a smart board or a class set of iPads. Of course,
Right.
a
It's not
class
like
set
it
of
is now.
iPads would have been amazing.
Yeah.
And so even the cheapest
And-
laptops back then were pretty expensive, I thought. I was
Yeah,
trying to
for
remember
sure.
back to what they were. Yep.
So, in the absence of options, I concede that the smartboard was, the only game in town kind of
Yes.
thing. And I will also acknowledge, and I totally conceded. I conceded that first option pretty quickly, and I also feel like I conceded the idea that there are teachers that are using these things the way that they're supposed to be used.
Oh, yeah.
There are teachers that use them effectively. There are teachers that use them well. There are teachers that know how to use them. I really want people to acknowledge that like 95% of teachers don't use them properly, don't use them well, and don't they are screens.
Honestly, we trained people, Mike. There was no. I'll tell you this right now. Because we received the training from the Smartboard company on them,
Sure.
and it was totally a teacher-centered approach.
Okay.
As far as how we were training teachers to use these smartboards, right? Now there was some interactive elements where you could bring kids up and then basically do some things on the board. Those were
Right.
some trainings too, but for the most part, it was a teacher-centered approach. So that was early 2000s. So some teachers have made the transition to being like, okay, this is how I used to use it. That doesn't really work anymore. Now I want to use it in a more, in a station kind of thing, and it's in a student-centered approach, however that might work within their classrooms. But it's like what we always talk about too, is that teachers need training to make that transition. So because as far as that's the tool that's available to them. Now you need to revamp that tool and say, okay, let me move away from the front of the class, and now how am I going to make it a more interactive, student-centered classroom versus a teacher-centered classroom?
If you have smartboards, maybe see if you can figure out how to use them more effectively if you're not. And it is what it is. I still, hot takes on Twitter get you in trouble. That's the lesson.
And you know what's last hot take on this one is that some school boards invested in those smart boards early 2000s, right? 15 years ago, let's say.
Yeah.
And they still expect that investment to carry through to today, which that's ridiculous. You know what I mean? They've lasted 15 years, but they're not reinvesting in something that's currently happening. And that happens a lot in rural Minnesota. It happens, I'm sure, in urban settings where there's just a limited amount of funds.
It's not like they can buy anything new.
No, so. This is the thing.
Still the only game in town for some teachers.
Yes, and that's the
crazy.
Biggest, it's crazy.
Thus Pledge Sense and our friends at over there doing cool stuff to help people buy things. When we come back, we're going to talk about our next conference that we're going to, Schoology NEXT, happening in San Diego next week.
On Education's ISTE coverage is brought to you by Teacher Gaming. Mike, we're giving away a 1-year subscription to Teacher Gaming.
So Teacher Gaming has 30 games, tons of games. 1 year is probably just enough time to play all of them, hopefully.
Yes. This is just ridiculous. To enter, all you simply need to do is tweet a pic of your favorite game of all time. It could be a board game, a video game, whatever it is.
Catan.
Yeah, Catan. To @TeacherGaming and tag On Education Pod. Tag us, and that's it.
That's it.
Even if you aren't the winner, though, this giveaway, you can still get a 30-day free trial, and all you need to do is go to teachergaming.com.
You'd still be a winner to us.
Yes, you are still a winner.
All right, welcome back. Well, Schoology NEXT is next. We are going to be at the Schoology NEXT conference in San Diego on the 15th of July, all the way to the 18th of July. I think I leave on the 19th in Carlsbad. I don't even know where Carlsbad is, but I'm about to find out.
It's a little.
I heard it's an hour north of San Diego. That's all I know. That is the limit of my knowledge. And so I'm pretty pumped about this. I went to Schoology NEXT last year, and it was pretty great. I don't know how many years. How many years have you been going to Schoology NEXT, Glenn?
That was it. It was last year. But
last year was your first
conference.
as well.
Exactly. It's a unique conference, smaller than let's say, of course, a lot smaller than ISTE, but it's very much like a family atmosphere. So if you've never gone and you're a Schoology user, and you have the opportunity to go, you should definitely go. Just the ability to be able to, it feels like you can talk to anybody. I think that's the best part.
It's small, right? It's not a huge conference like ISTE. There's going to be 1,000, maybe 1,500 people at the most there.
Yep.
And Glenn and I are both power users of Schoology. And we're both Schoology ambassadors, and I'm a contract trainer for Schoology, so I actually, teach other schools and districts how to use Schoology. And Schoology is sponsored by Schoology sponsors this podcast.
Yes.
So this is a really friendly environment for us. It's totally different, right, than ISTE. At ISTE, you're swarmed by there's more people in the friggin' line for Starbucks
than are going to attend
going to Schoology NEXT. So that'll tell you how long the stupid Starbucks line was at ISTE, that we joked about all the time. But this is a super friendly environment for us. We have lots of friends there. We know lots of people. We have lots of great relationships with, not just the attendees, but people, that work at Schoology, listen to this podcast. Hi, guys. So this is, I'm excited. I'm really excited. This is a fun event, I think.
Oh, it's super fun, and they make it where it is high energy, even through each of the evenings with all kinds of events and all kinds of different things to go ahead and make sure that we have opportunities to be able to really talk to each other. Where I think that's where those relationships grow, and then you can connect after the conference on a variety of different things. So it's not just if people are thinking like, okay, so it's what do you do at one of these conferences? Not related specifically to just the platform. Schoology is more like it's basically a big old professional learning network, on a variety of different topics, as can be shown by our content that we're presenting. I'm not presenting on anything that has to do specifically with using Schoology. I'm doing 2 sessions related to gamification and game-based learning. So, and you're doing your session that you had done at ISTE also?
Yeah, so I'm literally just doing virtually the same session I did at ISTE. I'm going to cut out a little bit and add some stuff related to how I actually formulate the class inside Schoology.
Sure.
I think that Schoology is actually a really good platform for project-based learning. And because I do almost like all of my curriculum, even the stuff not in grade 8, is project-based.
Yes.
I love Schoology. Schoology has changed my life. And I'm not trying to be rhetorical about that. I really think that I couldn't deliver the project the way I deliver it as effectively if it wasn't for Schoology. I really think that. And so I want to talk about how I develop a year-long project inside of Schoology, because I think that it's really quite a great tool for doing that stuff. I want to listen. You're glossing over your session, and I'm not going to let you get away with it too much. First off, the friggin' name of this thing is called Gamification the Musical.
Yes, it's quite an endeavor. We're starting to go into a little bit of panic mode because we're about a week out from having to do it. And
did you bite off a little more than you can chew?
It's a lot of stuff to do. I mean, basically, Jared Lopatin and I have rewritten a bunch of pop, let's call it pop karaoke type songs,
Yes.
and we've turned all the lyrics into gamification and game-based learning themes. I guess that's the best way to be able to describe it.
Yeah.
And so it's basically a musical. We have like a little skits that go between the session, each of the songs. We have we're expecting the crowd to sing along with us, so we have the lyrics and stuff up for everybody to come and sing along, at least on the chorus sections.
Oh, that's exciting.
It's a whole production. It's quite a production.
I'll tell you, I had that hot take on Twitter. I definitely think it's the best session title I've ever heard. And anyone who I actually am trying to flip through the schedule to see how many people are attending it so far.
There's a
I don't
lot.
know if I can. I don't know if I can see yours. I can see mine. So I know that there are like 40 people. See, look. Oh my God, dude. 86 people so far have signed up for Gamification the Musical.
And that's even before they watched the video that you already watched.
No pressure, buddy. No pressure. Yes, there's a video that by the time this comes out is going to be on YouTube. I've already seen it.
Yes.
And I'll tell you, we're going to put it in the show notes so that you can sing along with Glen and Jared.
Yes.
Who are
hilarious.
going to... yes, it is hilarious. It's very fun. It made me smile. I woke up
Jared
this morning.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying we're doing the podcast at 8:00 in the morning Eastern time, 7:00 Central. Glenn is tired because he's homeless, and well, not homeless.
I'm tired and homeless.
Tired and homeless. And listen, waking up in the morning and watching Jared and Glenn sing to me made me so happy. So happy.
Yeah, all I was going to say was Jared is like an amazing lyricist. It's just some of the stuff that
Did he
created.
write the lyrics for the thing?
He's written the lyrics to... I think we're going to do, I want to say 6 or 7 different songs, which it doesn't include the Be Our Guest song that you'll see on YouTube. We're not going to do that song. That was just a little preview of what we're going to do. But anyway, he's written the lyrics to all of the songs except for one. And
fabulous.
And his lyrics are
excited.
Amazing. Yes, really, really good.
Well, I'm sitting at the front, and
good.
And I'm gonna be excited.
Yeah, we want everybody singing along and having fun. That's really what it's about. I mean, we're gonna provide some materials that you can take with you afterwards, but really the session is about. We go to so many different sessions as people that go to different conferences, and sometimes it's hard to even remember what you went to, right? So this one is basically something that you will remember, have fun in, and just leave, like you just said, with a smile. That's really what our goal is.
There's some other cool sessions on project-based learning. Bob is doing a session on project-based learning.
Very cool.
That I'm gonna go to see if I can get some tips. I love the sessions on like the visual tweaks and tricks and things like that. I learned probably my biggest takeaway from 17 was going to the sessions that showed you like how to hack Schoology sort of.
Yes.
Love those ones. So I'm gonna go to those ones for sure because I think that any way that you can make Schoology a little bit more visually interesting and not remind kids that it's a learning management system and that's where all their grades are.
Sure.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, the one that I'm interested is another one that has to do kind of with gamification. Is Jeremy Mahoney. Has one about leveling up your professional development.
Nice, yes.
And it just looks good.
Yeah.
It talks about badges and essential items for successful gamification, how to create your own game. So I'm definitely going to attend that. And then we were going to talk about the keynote speaker. That's Caitlin Tucker, and she is well known for blended learning. That's what we were looking up as we were researching her, and so that should be really interesting. I want to see how she talks about that in relation to Schoology.
Yeah, I think that there's opportunities there for sure to do a lot of different stuff with blended learning, and she's literally wrote the book on this. So
yes, several.
Counting on her to drop some knowledge pretty hard on us, and I think that Schoology NEXT is going to be so exciting. I'm awesome. A little sad to be going alone. We wanted to bring my family, but just as with ISTE, some of these conferences are pretty expensive. When you have a conference on a resort in California, there are costs.
Yes,
so
big costs.
Big costs. Maybe we'll talk about that when we're there.
Yes.
We are doing a show. We might actually do two, but we're both kind of. Glen's way more busy than I am. I'm telling you the truth. I'm going to sit at the pool.
That's good.
But I would love to do. We're at least going to do one, and we're kind of working with Schoology on doing it. We're going to do it outside and get some speakers so that people can hear it and participate. And we're going to bring on some of our friends from Schoology that are using Schoology. Awesome teachers.
Yes.
Awesome teachers. Bob, Stephen Rayo is in, and a bunch of others. Jared, obviously, we would have to get him on, and so many others that we're really excited to talk to, and we'll have kind of short 5 or so minute conversations with them. I'm also counting on us talking to some of the folks from Schoology. So we're going to have a pretty fun show. Hopefully it'll be interactive maybe. I'm trying to think of a game we can play with the audience while they're listening to the podcast, a la Love It or Leave It style.
Oh, yeah.
That might be fun. So we'll see what we can do. I got a week to figure it out. So.
All right.
So when we come back, we're going to go through a bit of our thoughts on ISTE, but more importantly, we're going to recap some really interesting blog posts that have popped up post-conference about the conference and its direction.
On Education is brought to you by Audible. Mike, what have you been reading lately? And I suppose you're kind of like me, where you have quite a few books that you have on your list.
I have too many books on my list. I have probably about 40 audiobooks on my queue, and between listening to podcasts and audiobooks, I am well stocked. Lots of cool books are on Audible, hundreds and thousands of titles, and you can get your own audiobook download for free if you go to audibletrial.com/oneducation, that's audibletrial.com/oneducation, and you can get a free audiobook download. You should go do that, like, right now. All right, welcome back. So ISTE is over, 24,000-ish people, and lots of interesting articles have come out about ISTE. Kind of follow-up articles, reflection articles, and we've pulled out two, and they happen to be by the exact same person, Mike Crowley. It's at Crowley_Mike. And he's on, these articles were on Medium. We're going to put the posts in the show notes.
Yes.
But the first one was titled The Problem with ISTE. And I think that one of the things I'm going to do, I think I'll just read this quote, but it says, quote, "But perhaps my Ningling,"
Sure.
I don't know if I typed that right, Ningling sense that there really is a problem with ISTE resides in the overwhelming expo hall where countless vendors compete to sell their wares, and from which there seeps a corporate ethos that seems to overwhelm the educational agenda. That's pretty tough language, I think. I don't find myself always agreeing with this article, and even with the other one. But I mean, I don't know. Let me get this out, anyways, and then I'll let you go. I think that one of the things that not a lot of teachers go to a lot of. This is a standard industry conference to me. Like I went to these before I was a teacher. This is actually better than a standard industry conference because at least there's learning being done and learning happening. But expo halls are pretty common, and these are companies that are trying to some of them are trying to do really interesting things, and this is the best way in some cases for them to get out their word and show people their products. I mean, you can't do everything one person at a time, unfortunately, and it's just not cost effective. And paying $5,000 for a booth and then going there for a weekend and maybe dropping 10 grand on a small booth might be the best way for you to spend 10 grand. I mean, 10 grand to travel around the United States, talking to classroom by classroom will disappear pretty quickly. I get that it feels a little corporate-y.
Yep. But I guess the biggest thing is it. He said overwhelming expo hall. Oh my god, it is super overwhelming. But it is the biggest EdTech conference,
right?
Like you had said, in the United States for sure, if not the world.
Right.
That's the place where everyone is going to go to, and the bigger that you are, as far as in that space, it's almost like you had that much. Didn't it feel like to you that you had that much of land or space at the conference? So your Googles and your Microsofts, you have these huge spaces because you do have
lots of stuff.
Yeah, you have this many types of products to be able to show off to teachers, to show kind of how it connects to specifically to education. I think a lot of them, almost everybody that I saw out there were doing sessions that actually were teaching people things.
100%. Even I'm at the ViewSonic booth, looking at the ViewSonic booth. These guys sell monitors.
Yes.
And there's Alice doing Google Slide sessions.
Yes.
In the ViewSonic booth.
Yeah, it was totally teaching.
Right. 100% teaching. Like, and Alice doesn't do a lot of fluff presentations. It's not a lot. It's literally, here's how you use Google Slides. Let me show you this.
Yes.
I'll give her credit for that. Like, her sessions were pretty informationally dense in terms of like actual things you can take away and use. And this was at the ViewSonic booth. Again, they sell monitors.
Yes.
The only thing that was being done there as far as hawking monitors was the fact that the session was on a friggin' monitor.
Yeah.
I mean, it was great. And when you look at some of the other places, the EdTech team booth, they had a huge booth, but it was almost entirely centered around a giant screen and a little amphitheater for people to sit and attend sessions from people like Holly Clark and Tanya Averth, who are brilliant, and Jenny McGarrah. I mean, God, I'll sit and listen to them talk about anything they want me to listen to anytime. So, you know, and then there was, you know, the Microsoft booth, and they literally had Minu there doing Minecraft sessions. And I mean, it's like, I don't see it as necessarily a bad thing. It's, you know, go to other trade conferences and you'll see a lot more worthless hawking of wares than you saw at ISTE. Guaranteed. You should have just walked across to the North building where they were selling food. And I mean, seriously, right? We walked through there. It was a food expo for frozen food. How exciting is that going to be? You know, at least there was interesting stuff happening and learning, I think, happening. So, I mean, I get it, but it's big. I think that the problem with this is creating realistic expectations.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I guess before you go to ISTE, you should hyper-focus on a couple of different things that you're going to be attending or listening to or connecting with certain people.
Yeah.
Versus, I think if you just go there, you would just be so overwhelmed. You won't even, you know, it's too overwhelming. You don't even know where to begin, you know, kind of that thing. Mm-hmm. It definitely takes some planning. Yeah,
absolutely. The other article was also by Mike Crowley, and he titled it another pretty serious title, The Death of EdTech. Bum, bum, bum. I'm going to hear and it's centered around this hyped up announcement that Google made. You know, that they said it was going to like change the world or whatever, like most things that, you know, they would announce, you know, we're going to disrupt disruption or whatever. I don't know. Actually, that's a good way to put it, because this was talking about locking Google Forms in when you're using it as a tool to create quizzes, which I don't, but, you know, I suppose that people do. Lots of people do, I'm sure. And he was just a little annoyed that we hyped up this idea that we're locking kids into a quiz, which is, you know, pretty much exactly the same as we've always done. And it prevents students from doing, you know, searches and empowerment. He says, what one must ask is the tough problem being solved here that inspires innovation, prohibiting students from cheating on traditional assessments using expensive tech tools to perform very basic 20th century tasks. The death of EdTech, anyways.
Yes. Yeah. No, I actually agree with him that that's not that big of an announcement. I mean, I saw it. We both saw it. We're like, so, you know, that's not that big of a deal. But it does solve a problem that if you were only using Google Forms for formative assessments, let's just say, and you didn't want someone to just quickly Google the answer to something.
Yeah.
I guess, I mean, that does solve that issue. It's just that it's not that big of an announcement.
It's not a world-shattering, disruptive solution to
no, because that should already be standard. Exactly.
Well, the idea that there wasn't really even a problem that needed to be solved here. I think that, you know, if you don't want your kids to cheat on a Google Forms quiz, just, you know, walk around, be a classroom manager, for God's sake.
Or even better, rewrite the test and quiz and don't give them anything that's Googleable. Make sure that it's something that they have to formulate a higher level,
real answer.
A higher thinking idea, or actually solve something that's not just a canned response. A canned response won't work, you know, in that type of a situation, which you can do in Google Forms. I mean, definitely. There's open short essay, open response questions you can add a file. You know, you can upload a file so they can add an image or whatever it might be, so they can work within another platform and submit it within the Google Forms. All of those are great solutions. If you're so hardcore that you wanted to lock them down in a 5-question quiz, then you can do that now. It's just that it doesn't feel like a big announcement. You know, it doesn't feel like something like we're going to announce at ISTE this amazing thing that we did.
Yeah, newsflash, this was not the iPhone X.
No.
I think that Google fell into the trap of trying to hype things to teachers who, aren't buying their, BS kind of thing. Tell us what it can be done. Tell us what to do with it. Tell us the problem it's solving, but don't tell us it's the next big thing in, whatever. And we've talked about this a little bit actually while we were just kind of walking around. I just don't get up for Google anymore. It's not waking me up in the morning and, I'm not losing my mind over training for Google Forms or Google Sites or Google Sheets. I mean, there's interesting things that can be done, but
it's because it's already a standard in our industry. Do you know what I mean? So if you're not already using it, then I guess yes, all that training is important because you're not using it to its fullest potential. Yes. But it's now become kind of a standard. It is the go-to. I would say it's superior to the Microsoft equivalents of any of those, just because of the collaborative 100%. Nature of it. And it's a standard in education, if not in multiple industries, because of its collaborative nature.
Yeah, yes, absolutely, and yeah, I just don't go crazy for Google stuff anymore. It is what it is. So, I mean, Google, calm down, okay? Just cool it, guys. Locking down Google Forms is not disrupting anything. God. So anyways, 2 really good articles. We'll link them in the show notes. They're really good. Super interesting. There was a lot of other post-ISTE kind of stuff. I think despite everything we heard from Jennifer Reagan-Four, who was on the show and answered the question, which was great. It was classy of her to take the question and answer it about cost. And cost is cost, and it was high. It was expensive.
Super expensive.
We dropped close to $3,500 just between the two of us.
Yes.
At ISTE, maybe even a little bit more. It could have been closer to $4,000.
Well, what's it cost to just buy your ticket? $800?
Right.
Yes.
So much money.
Yes.
And hotels and Ubers everywhere. I mean, we couldn't walk anywhere because of locations, but oh my God, and food and it costs a lot of money. Yep. And I can't imagine bringing a group of teachers,
a whole team,
and paying for that unless it was literally the only PD you did. And listen, if it's the only PD you do, that's probably a little scary too.
You can make it worthwhile though, like I said, but it's got to be really well planned out, by your team, and then you have to really, catch your sessions really early. You got to get there really early to make sure you actually get in.
Lineups.
Yep, you got to have everything all lined up, and then I guess too, just like you just described, you could also use those booths as part of your professional development because there's a ton of stuff going on at those. Schoology had a bunch of things they were doing. Google had their own things. We just talked about the stuff that's, and these are really worldwide speakers that are actually being held inside the booths areas, which is awesome. You're talking about 15 to 30 people at some of those, so you really get you can ask questions, of these people where you wouldn't be able to at a normal conference.
100%. So, and they are creating some smaller events. This was one of my favorite little pieces of news from ISTE was that they've announced that they're going to develop some small conferences that are more catered specifically to a subject or a topic. And they're going to be less expo hall and hopefully less cost and certainly smaller lines at Starbucks. So these are good things. I think that I enjoyed myself. I had a lot of fun. I'm glad I went. And we did some really good work at ISTE. And I'll do it again next year because I think it was a great event. It was totally worth going. But definitely there are issues, and there's always going to be issues, and certainly we should keep talking about them because they're worth talking about, and they're interesting stuff.
Yes, absolutely, man.
So when we come back, we did, speaking of ISTE, we did an interview with the CEO of programming/coding/learn to code platform Tynker, and we will be talking to him.
Friends, On Podcast Media is getting set to launch not one, but 2 new podcasts this summer, and we're excited to tell you about the first one, On Politics. On Politics is hosted by politician, professor, and human rights lawyer Craig Scott. On Politics will take deep dives into policy and politics. You definitely come away learning something every week. To stay up to date with On Politics, follow the show's Twitter account, @OnPoliticsPod. All right, welcome back, guys. We are here with Krishna, who's the CEO for Tynker, which I'm a big fan of. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So, for people who aren't at ISTE, this is kind of what we're trying to do is get people a sense of who's all here and what they're doing and what they're trying to teach people or show people. Tell our listeners a little bit about Tynker, what you guys do, kind of the broad picture.
So Tynker is a coding platform used by more than 80,000 schools around the world to teach coding to kids and connect coding to other subject areas like science, math, language arts, and history. Tynker is available both online using browser as well as on apps on Android and iOS. Tynker is designed so that the students learn most of the coding on their own, and the teachers have a full view of where the learning is through their dashboards from at an individual student level as well as at a classroom level or a school level. We provide free coding courses to get the school started, and we give all the online hosting of coding as well as tools for free for all schools. But if they choose to, we provide a premium option in which we give them grade specific programming curriculum as well as curriculum to connect coding to subject areas as well as assessment.
Yeah, you guys tie a lot of that stuff to specific things, and your user interface is really friendly where you can see, you know, if you want to do social studies, what you can tie to that's related to, it's like code, you're doing the learn to code stuff, but you're also doing some code to learn stuff.
Absolutely, and we want kids, our vision is to help kids become makers, use coding as a tool, but not to become a software engineer, which seems to be the craze these days.
Right. I mean, using technology. We actually just came from an ISTE thing where they spent a lot of time talking about integrating technology, not in this way that seems forced, but in this way that seems natural, the way that where it's second nature for coding and technology to be part of the curriculum, and that's a little bit, I guess, about what you guys are trying to do. And so my first connection to Tynker came through Computer Science Education Week. So I've been running a thing for Computer Science Education Week, which is in December, usually of every year, and it involves the Hour of Code and Code.org. Tell us a little bit about what you guys do, for how you got hooked up with Code.org, what you do there, and then also, you know, the broad picture of Computer Science Education Week and what you guys do.
Absolutely, and Tynker is a 5-year-old company, so when CS Ed Week and Code.org started Hour of Code, we were the first ones who gave the curriculum for Hour of Code through Code.org, and basically we give them gamified tutorials for different age grade groups, whether it is elementary or to middle school, in different levels of expertise. And kids in that 1 hour experience, students will be able to learn basics of computing. And just to give you some stats, in the last 5 years, more than 120 million students around the world use Tynker. We're probably the number one tutorial provider on Hour of Code. The reason these tutorials are really good, is that we branded them with Hot Wheels or with
kids love the Hot Wheels one.
Monster High or virtual drone programming, things like that. So that kind of gives them. I think all along our goal is we focus on interest-driven learning. Kids have different interests, whether it's flying drones and making robots or modding Minecraft. So we want them to learn through the interest they prefer versus forcing them to learn coding the means that we want them to.
That's it. That's exactly it. Speaking of, you led me right into it.
Minecraft.
Good man. I mean, you guys are doing some rad stuff with Minecraft Education Edition, like really, really, really cool stuff. We're friends with Steve Isaacs, and he's been telling us about it. And so, I mean, go crazy. Tell us everything about this, because I think that this is one of the coolest things you guys are doing right now.
So I think when Minecraft Education Edition came with coding, that we offered them interactive tutorials in which kids can actually learn to code by modding Minecraft. Mm-hmm. So they have a offering called Minecraft Education Edition, which provides coding. But we also taken Minecraft to the next level. Besides the Education Edition, in our thing, we actually host private servers for kids. So they actually mod real Minecraft as well. Even though if they don't have Minecraft Education accounts, they can mod Minecraft using our servers. They can also do create, like, so if you have Minecraft, they have lots of creatures like chickens and pigs, and now Aquatic Edition have aquatic creatures.
Yeah.
So what we've done, we actually created a macro language where kids can actually program these creatures. For example, if you attack my chicken, it'll get angry and throw a fireball at you. It's basically we're teaching them object-oriented programming and how to modify behaviors using code. So this goes well, and obviously we love Minecraft Education Edition. They provide beautiful experiences for kids, but we also taken that experience to the next level.
So if people want to, we try to talk a lot on our podcast about barrier-free entry paths to technology and any product that we ever talk about. If we were reviewing something or whatever, what is the most barrier-free way to get involved in that? So how can people, if they want to jump in and do something with Tynker, where do they go? What do they do? How do they do it?
So for educators, there is two different ways. One, they can be online if they're using Chromebooks or browser-based devices. They can just go online to tynker.com, sign up as a teacher. You get 2 free courses, whether it is for elementary school or middle school. You get a lot of tutorials for, based on like Father's Day, Mother's Day, Valentine's Day, lots of seasonal tutorials, our code tutorials, all that stuff. That's one way to get started. And you have you can connect your Google Classroom, or you can upload a simple spreadsheet or Clever. There are different ways of setting up a classroom based on. And then on iPads, we also provide, as part of Everybody Can Code program, 2 free courses. So you just have an iPad Tynker app, download it. You just set up your class online, and then they have students log in, and they're able to run through the whole course on their own. And then you have full access to where they are, each student, and metrics, assessment metrics, and if they're stuck, you'll be able to know the progress of the students. So that's the best ways to get started. And if they really like what they see and Tynker experiences, then they can purchase our premium options, whether it's elementary or middle school, which comes with both grade-specific programming courses as well as STEM courses to connect programming, and makerspace courses like Lego robotics, drone programming. And now, just at ISTE, we're introducing an AR programming course. So both kids who have Chromebooks or browsers or iPads, they'll be able to program AR. Like, for example, when they build a game, they're in the game using the camera, and they interact with the characters. So it's super fun. We also acquired a company last year called Python Room to do higher level middle and junior high school courses.
Okay.
So we're introducing 2 new courses this fall for HTML, CSS learning to HTML, CSS, as well as Python, advanced Python. So a lot of that with the new, so if you get into middle school, the students want different IDs, just like professional looking IDs.
I teach some grade 8s that want to learn some Python.
They don't want to use block coding anymore.
No, so they're done with Scratch.
Yes. So we are giving them specific tools that look like programmer tools, just like any other programmer uses, but a little bit dumbed down, not that complex.
Yeah.
And so that they have pathways into...
scaffolded properly.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Amazing. Awesome. Krishna, thanks for joining us. This has been great. Lots of good information there. Folks, Tynker.com, go check it out. Really, really great tool. I've been using it for a while, and I couldn't recommend it enough.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate you having me on.
On Education is an on-podcast media production. My name is Mike Washburn. My co-host is Glen Irvin. You can get in touch with us or ask us questions to answer on air by visiting our website, oneducationpodcast.com. You can tweet us at oneducationpod. Glen is at Irv Spanish on Twitter. I can be found on Twitter at Mr. Washburn. Our sound engineer is Jake Codeweiss. He's on Twitter at JK Radio. You can find us on Facebook by visiting facebook.com/oneducationpod. If you're enjoying the show and think others would too, we would be honored if you shared it with them. Please leave us a rating or review in Apple Podcasts or the Google Play Store. When you leave a rating, it gives our rankings a boost. This helps others discover the show. We want to thank our presenting sponsor, Schoology, for supporting us. Check out Schoology.com to learn how they can help you advance what's possible. Thanks as always for listening. Stay awesome. See you soon.